If you know America's history with refugees, then the recent paranoia regarding accepting Syrian refugees should come as no surprise. During the 1840s, thousands of Irish fled to America during the Great Famine, which in the end killed 1 million Irish. The Irish were not welcomed with open arms in America. American newspapers derided the Irish immigrants as a stupid servant race, and the Know Nothing Party rose in opposition of Irish immigration. The party's platform was of American nativism and the fear of a Catholic takeover. The Chinese laborers in America were once valued during the beginning of the California Gold Rush and the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. However, worsening economic conditions in California turned Americans against the Chinese. Labor leader Dennis Kearney and California Governor John Bigler blamed Chinese residents for depressed wage levels, and out of the anti-Chinese sentiment rose the Supreme Order of Caucasians, with 64 chapters and 5,000 members across California. Their sole mission was to deport every last Chinese from America. Riding the wave of anti-Chinese sentiment, the U.S. federal government signed the Chinese Exclusion Act, barring most Chinese from entering. Like the Irish, the Italians came into a very hostile environment of nativism and anti-immigration. A cartoon stated, "If immigration was properly restricted, you'd never be troubled with anarchism, socialism, the mafia, and such kindred evils." In 1890, the New Orleans chief of police was shot to death. The New Orleans mayor blamed Sicilian gangsters, and more than 100 Italians were detained. All the detained Italians were about to be freed on lack of evidence, until a mob of 10,000 New Orleans dragged 11 Sicilians from prison cells and lynched them. This was the single largest lynching in U.S. history, and U.S. press seemed to approve of the event. During the Holocaust, 67% of Americans opposed a plan to accept 10,000 European orphans into the U.S. Even after the Holocaust, 59% of Americans opposed a plan to accept Jews and others displaced after the war. After the Vietnam War, 62% of Americans opposed President Carter's plan to increase the number of refugees taken in from mainland Southeast Asia. Like the fear of Chinese workers in the past, Americans were afraid the Vietnamese refugees would take their jobs and depress wages. Then and current California Governor Jerry Brown complained that the federal government wanted to dump Vietnamese on California. During the early 90s, the military dictatorship in Haiti had many Haitians seeking political asylum in the U.S. 63% of Americans opposed allowing Haitians political asylum in the U.S.
You know, instead of it being Jews, it's Muslims. Instead of it being blacks who are in slavery, it's Muslims.
Similarities between the language of Donald Trump and the language of Adolf Hitler.
Yes, sir. And it's undeniable. I'm so upset with people who aren't exercising their intellect as much as they're exercising their emotions. Look at me. I get nuts. Because I'm an emotional human being. We all are. But I must exercise my intellect. I must say to myself, how many refugees have committed a terrorist act in America since 9/11? And I do the research, and the answer is 0, none.
Now you can see why the current paranoia regarding accepting Syrian refugees during the ongoing crisis in Syria comes at no surprise. With that being said, the American government is committed to accepting refugees. Since 1975, the U.S. has resettled approximately 2.6 million refugees. California Governor Jerry Brown, who had once opposed accepting Vietnamese refugees in the 70s, is now welcoming Syrian refugees with open arms. And President Obama remains committed to his plan to admit Syrian refugees despite the many hurdles. There are over 4.6 million Syrian refugees. They need your help. Please visit mercywithoutlimits.org to give hope by sending help.